Namaskar. Welcome to the part number 5 of the lesson number 8. The basic output of the combined level study, that is planet, star lord and sublord, for your better understanding on the impact of the step number 4. In the previous part, we were talking about the step number 4, wherein we studied on the all levels, planet, star lord, sublord, their combined level overall, what sort of impact a planet can give. So the overall planet strength we studied by through the combined levels. In that, whether the planet is favorable or star lord is unfavorable or favorable, sublord also favorable or unfavorable for an event, based on that we have to study, we discussed. And also importantly, we studied the importance of the grouping of houses from planet to the star lord to the sublord. So that way, grouping of houses, that house grouping chain also have to be given importance. That also we studied. Here in this part, for your better understanding the concept, what sort of impact a planet can give. Suppose the planet is favorable, or star lord is favorable or unfavorable, or sublord is favorable or unfavorable. What the planet basically it can give, we can say the planet is favorable on the higher side, or what sort of impact it can get. So that we can study in this. In a few slides, I have made it. So for your better understanding the concept, what star lord, if it is unfavorable, what will happen? Star lord or the star lord, it is there, what will happen? The sublord is also favorable or unfavorable, different combinations when a planet is having that. So then what sort of output we can think of for better and for our approximate understanding on the concept we can find in this part. So of course, please understand, based on the grouping of houses, only the impact of this is going to be there, that we have to keep it in mind. Okay. Let me move to the slide. An approximate output on various combination of planet, star lord and sublord. That is step number 4. The influence of support planets and ruler links impact, that we are going to study in step number 5 and 6. That also has to be considered along with this. This is only up to the step number 4. That too, it is talking about only the each planet's rulers, their strength and weakness. It is not including the impact of the support planets and ruler links planets. That you have to keep it in mind. Based on their impact, the output what we are talking, that can get deferred. I hope you will understand the point which I am trying to say. Second point is that the house grouping chain from level to level will add more value, whether it is favorable or unfavorable, based on the grouping of houses, that the impact will vary. That, when we are going to discuss in live case studies on examples, you will understand better, but you have to keep it in mind. Just because a planet is favorable or unfavorable, even it is unfavorable or even it is favorable, what sort of grouping of houses it is having, and how the grouping chain it is forming from the previous level and the next level. So that way, house grouping chain from level to level will add more value, that you have to keep it in mind. Okay. First one, I'm going to discuss planet is favorable planet, and star lord is also favorable, and sublord also favorable. Then what is the difference? You can see I have given option, planet is favorable, star lord is favorable, and sublord also favorable. This is combination 1, this is combination 2. What is this combination? Planet is favorable, Star Lord also favorable, Sublord also favorable. The difference is lying with the Star Lord or the Star Lord. So when planet is favorable, Star Lord also favorable for an event. Star Lord or the Star Lord, if it is also favorable, then it is going to be more favorable, right? This is step number 1. This is step number 2. This is step number 3. Of course, Star Lord or the Sublord I have not taken because for your understanding, this is enough. Planet is favorable, Star Lord is favorable, Star Lord or the Star Lord also favorable. So the favorable impact is high. So effect is, what is the effect? More favorable. If Sublord also favorable, it is most favorable. That is the result. In case, instead of Star Lord or the Star Lord is being favorable, if it is unfavorable, what it is going to happen? Star Lord's favorable strength is getting reduced by the Star Lord or the Star Lord. So when compared to this, definitely the Star Lord is losing some strength because of the Star Lord or the Star Lord is not supporting to the favorable. So it is also favorable only. Even if it is reduced, it is becoming favorable because it is favorable and this is also favorable. But Star Lord's favorable strength is reduced by the Star Lord or the Star Lord. Sublord, if it is favorable, definitely it is going to be more favorable because favorable as Star Lord's unfavorable is not supported by the Sublord and the favorable Star Lord is setting support by the Sublord. Remember when I was telling in the step number 2 and step number 3 when I was talking, combined level Star Lord and Sublord, yes, it is good. And if you look at the Star Lord of the Star Lord and Sublord, it has got some unfavorable already. So that strength is making the difference. I hope you have understood. So now next combination, planet is favorable, Star Lord also favorable in both the combinations. Combination 1 and combination 2. Now Sublord is unfavorable in both the cases. Here favorable we discussed. Now we are going to discuss the combination if the Sublord is unfavorable. The difference between these two options is the Star Lord or the Star Lord. Planet is favorable, Star Lord is favorable, Star Lord or the Star Lord also favorable. Of course, it is going to be more favorable. But when the Sublord is unfavorable, the result will be weak because the result giving planet is weak. It is unfavorable to the grouping of houses. Now, if the Star Lord or the Sublord also unfavorable, the result will be weaker. You understand, no? If the Star Lord or the Sublord also unfavorable. Please understand, 3 levels are favorable, Sublord only unfavorable. Now, the impact of the supports, impact of the ruler links can reduce the unfavorable strength of the unfavorable also. That's Sublord. So based on that only the complete impact of this will be present. That you have to keep it in mind. In the next option, planet is favorable, Star Lord also favorable, Sublord also favorable, and Star Lord or the Star Lord also, planet is favorable, Star Lord is favorable, Sublord is unfavorable, and Star Lord or the Star Lord also unfavorable. 2 consequent levels are unfavorable. Though Star Lord or the Star Lord is a secondary level, Star Lord or the Star Lord and also Star Sublord both are unfavorable. They are making combination, it is weakening the situation. In this case, what will happen? Planet supported by the favorable Star Lord, but that is not being supported by the unfavorable Star Lord or the Star Lord. It is getting reduced. Favorable strength is reduced, and further planet, Star Lord and Sublord combination also not good. So that way, here also you can see favorable is reduced by the unfavorable. Here also favorable reduced by the unfavorable Sublord. But in between the Star Lord or the Star Lord also unfavorable, the impact is going to be more. The result will be weaker. I hope you have understood. In this case, you please understand one thing. Whenever a planet is favorable with the primary house, for the event. If the star lord is unfavorable with the primary unfavorable house. For example, for the event of marriage, the star lord is having 7th house. Star lord of the star lord is having 6th house. Though it is star lord and star lord of the star lord, this is also planet, and nakshatra lord is star lord of the star lord, right? So whether planet or star lord and star lord of the star lord, the rule applies. When 7th house in the star of a planet, 6th house, automatically the favorable strength of that particular house matters are going to be more reduced when compared to the other combination, wherein this planet, instead of primary house, if it is having 5th house, or it is having other unfavorable house for the event, if it is present, the impact will be comparatively lesser, because as we discussed in the combined level study in the lesson, I think in the part number 1, when a planet in the star lord, if it is having the 8th house or 12th house counted from the favorable house, the impact is going to be more, especially 12th house, because it is going to reduce. I hope you have understood this concept, that you had to keep it in mind. So now that favorable is getting reduced and further reduced by the other unfavorable. Next combination, third combination, planet is favorable and star lord is unfavorable. In the first 2 steps, we studied favorable, star planet and star lord also favorable. Here, the star lord becomes unfavorable and sublord is favorable. In the option 2, planet is favorable, star lord is unfavorable, sublord also favorable, but the difference is lying with the star lord or the star lord. The first option, planet is favorable, star lord is unfavorable. So the planet's favorable strength is reduced. Please understand, I was telling in the previous slide, I was telling about the planet, it is favorable, and star lord, if it is unfavorable. The planet, if it is having the primary favorable house, you can see I have given a note at the bottom. When the planet is having favorable primary house for an event, if the star lord is unfavorable with unfavorable primary house, the unfavorable effect will be significant on the house matters when compared to the other combination, wherein the planet is favorable but without the primary favorable house. Because if it is having, say, 5th house, star lord it is having 4th house, that is going to get more impact. I hope you have understood. The planet favorable means especially in CL and CSL. That is the general rule we have already discussed. Okay, now let me come to the discussion. Planet is favorable, star lord is unfavorable. Now, the unfavorable star lord is not further supported by the unfavorable star lord of the star lord, but the unfavorable strength is reduced by the star lord of the star lord is favorable. So now, but planet favorable reduced by the star lord, so automatically it is weakening. But because the star lord of the star lord is favorable, basically it is weak, but star lord's unfavorable strength is reduced by the star lord of the star lord, that you have to keep it in mind. You can see in this combination, the star lord is unfavorable the same way, but star lord of the star lord also unfavorable. So this is weak, this is becoming weaker because star lord's unfavorable strength is further increased by the star lord of the star lord. I think you are able to differentiate. Next one, what the sublord impact? Sublord is favorable. So it is weak, but not unfavorable. The sublord planet is favorable. So overall, the result is going to be fine. Though there will be some weakness at the star level, that is execution level, because star lords unfavorable, not supported by the star lord or the star lord and sublord. Because of the star lord is unfavorable, the planets favorable going to get reduced in the effect. But since the star lord of the star lord and sublord, they are not unfavorable, they are not supporting to the unfavorable signification of the star lord, it is overall, it is going to be fine only. I hope you have understood. Please understand, as I said previously, each planet can have mixed significations also, even if it is in mixed signification, based on the grouping of houses, whether favorable is more or unfavorable strength is more. Based on that, we have to study that. So, in other words, we have to study the unfavorable planet. Favorable is further supported by the star lords favorable or not, and same way that unfavorable is reducing the strength of the favorable or not. So that way individually we can also check. On this option, same way that sublord is favorable. Now what happens that star lord and star lord of the star lord, this combined studies giving weakness. So that is not further supported by the favorable sublord. So that way the result is going to be moderate. It is overall fine, but this is moderate because two levels, unfavorable star lord and star lord of the star lord, they combinedly they are not good. So they are going to reduce the favorable strength of the planet. But since the sublord is favorable, that overall that sublord is not going to support to the star lord and star lord of the star lords unfavorable. So it is going to be moderate. I hope you have understood. Now next combination. Planet is favorable, star lord also unfavorable, if sublord is unfavorable. In both options, planet, star lord, planet is favorable, planet is favorable. Star lord is unfavorable, star lord is unfavorable. Sublord is unfavorable, in sublord also unfavorable. The difference is lying with the star lord or the star lord. Here, in the third option, the same combination up to the planet star lord and star lord of the star lord, the difference only lying with the sublord, right? When the result is favorable, overall it is fine or moderate. Now here what happens? The planet is favorable, star lord is unfavorable, star lord of the star lord is favorable, so it is weak as equal to the previous combination. But when the sublord is also unfavorable, like star lord and star lord sublord, if both are unfavorable, so automatically become unfavorable. Now, the star lord of the star lord is favorable only. It will reduce the impact of the unfavorable. But that is not being further supported by the sublord. So, the unfavorable, it is going to be unfavorable. It is not going to be more unfavorable. Depending on the grouping, because of the that one level at the 2A level is supportive, reducing the unfavorable strength, it can become strongly unfavorable also because based on the grouping of the star lord and sublord, and it can be moderately unfavorable depending on the grouping of the houses. But still, star lord and sublord are unfavorable, and the star lord of the star lord is favorable. So based on that, it is indicating unfavorable. As I said, if the star lord of the sublord is favorable, that unfavorable strength will get reduced. And suppose star lord of the sublord is also unfavorable, it is going to be more unfavorable. I hope you have understood. Similarly, if the planet is having primary house for the event, as we discussed earlier, this impact is going to be more. That planet's favorable house matters are going to become weaker at the star level and sub level. Based on the grouping of houses, the impact level will vary. Now, in this case, you can see sublord also unfavorable. Star lord is unfavorable, star lord of the star lord is unfavorable, sublord is unfavorable, automatically it's going to be more unfavorable. As I discussed, if it is a mixed significator also, if it is having some unfavorable houses, it is also supporting to the unfavorable, it is having some unfavorable grouping, star lot of the star lot, and a sublot also forming some unfavorable grouping with the star lot and sublot. Suppose even if they are all mixed significator, that also will give combinedly it is going to be unfavorable. So that way, level-wise, whether planet is having favorable or favorable, we have to check. And also, the grouping of the houses also will, that is also going to give important impact. And also, as I said, step number 5 and 6, wherein the support planet's impact is going to be add some value to this. So, but for this combination study, we can understand when consequent levels are unfavorable or alternate levels are unfavorable or favorable, what sort of impact we can assume that we can easily get it. So now, so far in these 2 slides, we discussed the planet is favorable. In the next slides, we are going to discuss if the planet is unfavorable and the other combinations. You can see 5th combination, planet is unfavorable and star lot is favorable and sublot also favorable. Planet is unfavorable, star lot is favorable, sublot is favorable. Option 2 also the same way. Combination 2 also the same way. Star lot is favorable, sublot is favorable. But the difference, as we discussed already, star lot of the star lot only having the difference. Now the planet is unfavorable. Source is unfavorable. Star lot is favorable. So unfavorable strength of the planet is not supported by the star lot. Rather, that star lot is increasing the strength of the favorable house if the planet is having in the source, or reducing the unfavorable strength by the star lot. Okay, so there will be obstacles or struggles based on the significations in the initiation of the particular event when the source planet is unfavorable. Now the star lot is favorable and star lot of the star lot also favorable. So this combined level is going to give good effect to the planet. So the favorable star lot and star lot of the star lot is favorable. So favorable despite initial hurdles. Depending on the grouping of houses, we can give the effect. Now the sublot is favorable. So we can see all levels are favorable. Automatically, the result is going to be finally favorable only. Now, the same thing, that star lot is favorable. Star lot of the star lot is unfavorable. So, first level is unfavorable. Star lot is reducing the unfavorable strength of the planet. But star lot of the star lot is again reducing the favorable strength of the planet, star lot. Unfavorable reduced by the favorable, unfavorable reduced by the unfavorable star lot of the star lot. So basically, it is becoming weak, not on more unfavorable because primary level is favorable, star lot. But still, the unfavorable is not further reduced by the star lots along with its star lot of the star lot. Weak as star lot's favorable strength is reduced by the star lot of the star lot. Sublot is favorable. So it is going to be moderate favorable. It means you can see the difference between this is favorable, this is moderately favorable. Why? This star lot of the star lot is adding value to the star lot. This star lot of the star lot is not adding value, rather it is reducing the strength of the favorable. Please understand, if that planet, as we discussed, planet and star lots combined level study, if the planet is favorable having primary house and star lot is having unfavorable primary house with the unfavorable grouping, the favorable is going to become completely or more strongly reduced, then that impact is going to be more on the unfavorable side. Instead of moderate, can be less favorable also. I hope you have understood. Suppose star lot or the sublot also unfavorable, it is not going to be moderate favorable. It is going to become, still it is going to be, unfavorable strength is going to be further reduced. I hope you have understood the concept what I am discussing. Now the next one is unfavorable planet. Star lot is also favorable. Sublot is now unfavorable. Here we discussed sublord is favorable. Here sublord is unfavorable. All are same. Planet unfavorable, starlord is favorable, starlord of the starlord is favorable. It is decreasing the strength of that unfavorable, and because it is favorable despite initial hurdles as we discussed in the previous combination. But since sublord is unfavorable, it is going to be moderate. Because out of the 3 primary levels, 2 levels are unfavorable, but 2 consequent levels within that starlord is favorable. So it is not going to be completely unfavorable, but result will be unfavorable, and overall the result is going to be moderate. Here, same way, weak, because favorable starlord is reduced by the unfavorable, and unfavorable planet is getting some support from the starlord for the favorable side, but sublord again it is unfavorable. So what it means, starlord of the starlord unfavorable, sublord also unfavorable. So the favorable is not further supported by the sublord. That here also favorable is not further supported by the sublord, but favorable getting support by the starlord of the starlord. Here favorable is also not supported by the starlord of the starlord. So starlord of the starlord and starlord of the sublord both are unfavorable. It is going to be weak. So consequent levels are unfavorable. I hope you understood the concept I am talking about. So we will discuss the next combination. The next combination is number 7. Planet is unfavorable and starlord also unfavorable, and sublord is favorable. In 2 options, 2 combos, you can see both are same, but that difference is lying with the starlord of the starlord. Starlord of the starlord is favorable. Here starlord of the starlord is unfavorable. You can easily differentiate that planet is unfavorable, starlord is unfavorable, so they combinedly they are going to be more unfavorable. Since the starlord of the starlord is favorable, unfavorable strength of the planet can be reduced by the starlord of the starlord. But since both are unfavorable, the unfavorable impact will be more. You can compare here, all 3 are unfavorable. So the impact is going to be more unfavorable. Here, this will be unfavorable because the starlord's unfavorable reduced by the starlord of the starlord. But here it is going to be more unfavorable because since starlord's unfavorable strength is further reduced, further increased by the starlord of the starlord. Now, what the result planet is going to give? Result planet is favorable. So far, effect is unfavorable. Result is favorable. So because of that, that unfavorable strength will get reduced because that effect planet, the starlord of the starlord is favorable and sublord also favorable. So it is becoming weak. Unfavorable is reduced. Instead of more unfavorable, it is becoming weak. Depending on the starlord of the sublord, if the starlord of the sublord is also unfavorable, that is going to be weaker. But if the starlord of the sublord is also favorable, weakness will get still reduced. Here you can see it is same way sublord is favorable. So, but it is already planet, starlord, and starlord of the starlord has given the effect of more unfavorable. So only the sublord is favorable. That is also weak only. Here it is weak, but unfavorable is reduced because the 2 consequent levels are good. Here it is going to be comparative weakness is going to be more when compared to this. Based on the step number 5, the role of support planet, the impact can get reduced or increased. I hope you have understood. Now the last combination, planet is unfavorable, starlord also unfavorable, and sublord also unfavorable. You can see planet, starlords, all are unfavorable. Obviously, it is going to be weaker only. Both are going to be weaker, but based on the starlords strength, the weakness level can be increased or decreased. Correct? It cannot be increased. Weakness can be reduced if when the star lord or the star lord is favorable. Still, it is effect is unfavorable only because star lord's unfavorable is reduced by the star lord or the star lord. Sublord, when it is unfavorable, it is going to be weaker because out of, you can see planet, star lord, sublord, all the primary rulers are unfavorable based on the grouping of houses involved. The intensity of the unfavorable strength is going to be more. Here in this combination, you can see all levels ruled by unfavorable planet only. So it is going to be weakest. If the star lord or the sublord in both the cases, or even if it is favorable, the intensity is going to be weak only. The weakness can be a little bit reduced in the result, but that is not going to be strong because from the planet up to the sublevel, they are all unfavorable. I hope you have understood. Please understand one thing I want to say here. Imagine these are all unfavorable. So for a planet, for any event, when a planet is having all unfavorable houses, definitely it is going to be more unfavorable. That is for sure. But there are two options you have to think in mind. One option is that suppose the planet is unfavorable, but along with that, it is having some primary favorable house. A planet can have unfavorable strength is more, but along with that, it can have a primary favorable house also, right? Or imagine like this. Suppose the planet is having primary house, seventh house, suppose for the event of marriage, or for the event of childbirth, fifth house, for the event of profession, 10th house. Okay. If it is having seventh house, and another combination, a planet is having sixth house. Okay. A planet star lord is having unfavorable. Seventh house matters are going to experience this unfavorable. So marriage matters are going to face lot of struggles or failures depending on the houses involved. Here, this planet is having, not having the primary house, but is having only the sixth house. It is unfavorable house to the event. Sixth house is unfavorable to the event of marriage, right? When it is there in the source and star level, sub level are forming grouping to the sixth house, especially eighth house is there, third house to the sixth house. If are all present, then obviously this planet is also grouping is indicating unfavorable to the event. But when what is the difference between this and this? This planet is unfavorable to the event of marriage prospects. This planet will give trouble to that event for the marriage in its period itself, because that planet is in the source, it is having primary house that is going to experience this. That is what I said in the in the note in the previous slides. If the planet is having primary favorable house, the star lord, if it is having unfavorable, that is going to be more unfavorable to the planet's house matters than the other combination. Now this is being extended. Now the sublord also unfavorable. The favorable strength of the planet, the primary house, will get reduced or affected by the star lord and sublord. This combination we have to keep it in mind. It is very important that, as I said in the combined level study also, in step number also, one also, if the planet, if it is primary house, we have to be careful in studying the next level. I hope you would have understood this. I have been repeating many times because you have to keep this in mind. Okay. Hope you would have understood the basic impact of the combined level study, and you can refer to this so that you will not forget, but you can easily remember these things, consequent levels or alternate levels, or each level is getting reduced in the next level or not, what is the impact of the sublord, what is the source planet is saying. So all these things one by one we can understand. So you can refer to this part. So I mean, whenever you have doubts, that will be helpful. Okay, in this, after this, I'll be discussing in the next part, that is part number 6. In that, we'll be studying the explanations on the fifth step and sixth step, that is support planets and ruler links impact on the planets. Okay, thank you.